The second album from Motorhead is a landmark release for a number of reasons. Overkill was released on Bronze Records, a label which would put out no less than 5 classic Motorhead albums. Overkill was also a lot less punky than their self-titled debut effort, and with some massively improved production to boot. In fact, this might be the first glimpse of what would come to be known as the signature Motorhead sound in general. And what to call the sound? I mean, the label rock and roll is general and safe, but it's certainly been embraced by the heavy metal crowd and largely understood to be just that, despite previous denials from the great Lemmy Kilmister. He actually hated people referring to his band as metal, but the association is utterly unavoidable. They were certainly influential on the genre as a whole. Bands such as Voivod, Megadeth, Slayer, Metallica, and countless other thrash bands routinely cite them. And then there's the band Overkill, who actually named themselves after the title track of this album. But if you ignore all of that and simply listen to the entire Motorhead catalog, it's pretty clear that they're a de facto metal band. Sorry, Lemmy. Overkill was also Motorhead's first album to break into the top 40 of the UK album charts, having managed successful singles for the title track and No Class, 2 songs that were live staples throughout the life of this band. Which means it should come as no surprise that my favorites include No Class, Tear You Down, and most of all, the title track to Overkill.
Don't sweat it! Get it back to you! Like, overkill! Overkill! Overkill!
Speaking of singles, this is when Motorhead recorded and released their single for the cover song, Louie, Louie. The song didn't appear on the original release of Overkill, but rather the 1996 CD reissue of the album. Back in the 80s, I got to know this track from its appearance on the 1984 vinyl release of their No Remorse compilation album. Did I mention the album cover is made of leather? Leather. Overkill just recently reached its 40-year anniversary. Unlike a rather large number of its contemporaries, though, Overkill really holds up well, and I definitely consider it high on the list of Motorhead's best. So cheers to the late great Lemmy Kilmister and his fast and filthy cohorts. That's right, I went there. The third album from metal legends Iron Maiden brought them at a crossroads between the success of their first 2 albums and the chance taken on a new vocalist, not to mention the social controversy surrounding the record. But without ruining too much of the plot here, the band did pretty okay for themselves. Following the Killers tour, the band had the unfortunate task of having to fire their previous singer, Paul Di'Anno, due to his drug abuse and related self-destructive behavior. The selection for a new singer happened soon after, bringing in former Samson vocalist Bruce Dickinson. And with all due respect to Di'Anno and his admittedly valuable contributions to the early Maiden material, the switch in singers was definitely an upgrade. Bassist and chief songwriter Steve Harris felt the same way, as his own writing vastly expanded with the potential of a more talented singer with an overall better range and a bombastic delivery style. And it should also be mentioned that Dickinson had a pretty big hand in co-writing the material on this record, albeit uncredited. Seems that due to some contractual entanglements with his previous band, he couldn't legally claim writing credit. But it's pretty obvious that he had collaborated on the songs. Virtually every track on this album is amazing, but my go-to songs are The Number of the Beast, Invaders, and especially Hallowed Be Thy Name.
When the praise comes to read me the last rites, take a look to the boughs of the last sites of a wall that has gone very wrong for me. Can it be that there's some sort of error how to stop the surmounting terror? Is it really the end, not some crazy dream?
Regarding the title track, the song's spoken word introduction is from chapters 12 and 13 of the Book of Revelation from the Bible and is read by voice actor Barry Clayton, who was later known as the narrator for the Count Duckula animated TV show. He wasn't the band's first choice, however. Vincent Price was approached earlier on, but they couldn't afford Price's, well, price. As for the album art, the services of established Maiden cover artist Derek Riggs were once again employed. But what singles out this cover from all of the other Maiden albums is that this, plus the album title, and no doubt its title track, brought the band some unexpected controversy. Given that it was the 1980s and the era of social conservatism, it's not exactly a stretch to imagine that an album called The Number of the Beast might get you some negative attention. Conservative groups, notably religious ones, accused the band of being devil worshippers, resulting in public record burnings and boycotts, as well as demonstrations outside music venues where the band played. And as you can imagine, none of this halted record sales, as The Number of the Beast went gold in the US the following year, and platinum by 1986. It also peaked at number 33 on the Billboard 200 chart. Singles released in promotion for this album included the title track, as well as Run to the Hills, which had a music video featuring live footage interspersed with clips from the silent films of Buster Keaton. The video was simple enough, but showcased the then-current lineup in top form. As for vinyl reissues of the album, there have been a slew of them throughout the decades. The most recent being the 2017 release by BMG on 180-gram vinyl. There was also a 2014 reissue from Parlophone Records Limited as part of a series of Iron Maiden reissues from 2014 to 2017. The Number of the Beast has been a fan favorite, a genre favorite, and a critic's favorite for decades. If you're one of the 3 metal fans on the planet who's never heard it, well, get to it. There's a lot to be said for when you come into a band, especially if you're a teenager. Now, some fans choose British Steel or Stained Class as their favorite Judas Priest album, and I know I have younger friends who've endlessly professed their undying love for Painkiller. Sandwiched in between that was my adolescence and my favorite Priest album, Defenders of the Faith. Defenders was produced by Tom Allom, who was responsible for no less than 11 Judas Priest albums. Maybe you're familiar with a few of these. Every band has their best producer, and Allom is clearly Priest's. Although Free Will Burning is an insanely close second, my very favorite track is the relentless and utterly crushing assault of The Sentinel. Another track worthy of mention, especially for its notoriety, is the song Eat Me Alive. It was listed on the Parents Music Resource Center's Filthy 15, a list of 15 songs the organization found most objectionable. If the PMRC is new to you, the internet has plenty on this long since dissolved Concerned Parents organization. We should also probably discuss the odd and equally awesome cover art done by Canadian graphic artist Doug Johnson, who had done a total of 3 covers for Priest, the other 2 being Screaming for Vengeance and Turbo. Johnson also did the package art for Cosmic Candy, which was definitely part of my childhood. Johnson's deco pop art style might not seem the likely choice for heavy metal album covers, but his images ultimately became iconic and representative of not only 80s Priest, but of the genre during that decade. I originally bought this album on cassette, along with its predecessor, Screaming for Vengeance. I was 15 and definitely excited about what I had considered finally finding my music. I always connected this album to good times as a teenager, being at chasing girls, going to parties, and in one instance, getting out of school for the summer. I remember finishing my last final exam for sophomore year and, upon leaving the building, needing a soundtrack for the moment. The choice was easy. I popped Defenders into my Walkman and cranked Free Will Burning to max for my glorious walk home. It was one of those moments that you were convinced that only you could truly get and appreciate. I'm sure others have their metal soundtrack moments. Share yours in the comments section and let's swap stories. Believe it or not, I've only seen Judas Priest live once. That's right, once. And it was really recent, actually. I caught them on their tour for Firepower in March of 2018 in Worcester, Mass, with Saxon as opening act. Easily one of the greatest shows I'd been to in a decade or two. Completely blew out my voice screaming endless lyrics of favorite Priest tracks, and was psyched to cross this off my list of things to do before I die. A pal of mine actually met Halford and tried to get a selfie, but couldn't figure out his new camera phone, and Rob had to bail for sound check. Oh, the humanity. Judas Priest hit their 50th anniversary in 2019. Think about that. 50 years of Judas Priest. Amazing. And while Rock-a-Rolla sounds absolutely nothing like Firepower, the enduring legacy of this crucial metal band can't be denied. Put bluntly, you cannot have a history of heavy metal without this band as a primary chapter. They are an undeniable force in this music we love. So here's to the metal god and the mighty Judas Priest. For an album that's mired in controversy, deceit, and death, the second release from Ozzy Osbourne manages to not only improve upon its predecessor, but has secured itself as both a masterpiece and a heavy metal classic. But what could have been? What could have been? So let's put the first baby to bed right now. Although the inner sleeve states and shows that Tommy Aldridge and Rudy Sarzo are on this record, they aren't. Bassist Bob Daisley and drummer Lee Kirkslake are not only the real source of the bass and drums on Diary, but Daisley is responsible for 5 of the 8 song titles and wrote the lion's share of the lyrics. Aside from a title or two and the vocal melodies, Ozzy has little else to do with the record from a musical standpoint. For a whole lot more on all of this, check out Daisley's autobiography, entitled For Fact's Sake, currently available from Amazon. Of course, I have to mention the final musician on Diary of a Madman. Guitar virtuoso and one-time member of Quiet Riot, not to mention the LA music scene rival of Eddie Van Halen himself, Randy Rhodes actually had to be talked into auditioning for Ozzy by acquaintance Dana Strum, later of Slaughter. Things seem to work out pretty well, as evidenced by Rhodes' contribution to these 2 amazing albums. A tough 3-way tie on favorite tracks here, between Over the Mountain, Believer, and the title track to Diary of a Madman. And speaking of Over the Mountain, there's been a bit of contention over the years regarding whose drumline opens the track. Aldridge admits freely that he didn't play it, and that Kirkslake did. Beyond that, there was some confusion over who wrote the drumline. Kirkslake or Quiet Riot drummer Frankie Banali, who initially claimed he came up with it, but has later not been sure and speculates that it might be a coincidence. Kirkslake and Daisley insist that it belongs to the former. If you choose not to take sides in this one, the author of the drum intro could appear to be a bit of a mystery. And then there's the track known as SATO. The track was originally called Strange Voyage, but changed to the acronym following Daisley and Kirkslake's firings. What does the acronym stand for? A number of theories abound, the least likely of which is Sail Across the Ocean. However, the one that has gained the most credibility is Sharon, Adrian, Thelma, Ozzy, which includes Ozzy and Sharon's relationship partners during their own initial affair. We should also talk about the album cover. The photo was taken by Finn Costello, who is also known as one of a few regular Kiss photographers in the 1970s. And yeah, Costello shot some other folks too, but I'm going to mention Kiss, just because. As for Costello's work on Diary, the child in the back of the shot is none other than Ozzy's eldest son, Louis. And the parchment poster on the back wall reads, Ozzy Osbourne, the band. In fact, the letters are part of an ancient substitution cipher known as the Theban alphabet, and were used by occultists throughout centuries past. On the inner sleeve, the cipher above the band photo translates to the Ozzy Osbourne Band. And on the other side, it reads Sunday and Thursday, for some strange reason. Likely Ozzy's sense of humor there. Without exception, this is my favorite Ozzy album, having discovered it in late 1983, months after owning Blizzard of Oz and Speak of the Devil. It's a more mature effort than their debut album. The songwriting is improved, and the guitar work is both heavier and or more complex, depending on the track. It's also Ozzy's favorite Ozzy album, according to his autobiography. Sadly, this was the final album with Randy Rhodes, who died in a plane crash in March of 1982. Randy's signature playing on the first 2 Ozzy albums spawned numerous imitators, and he's well revered to this day by metal guitarists worldwide. In 2017, Rhodes was inducted into the Hall of Heavy Metal History for defining heavy metal lead guitar. Before I get to the vinyl reissues, there is one reissue on CD that sparked a notable amount of controversy. In 2002, Diary of a Madman was re-released, but with re-recorded bass and drum parts, effectively cutting out Daisley and Kirkslake. It's a sleazy move, likely done in retaliation for the musicians winning a lawsuit against the Osbournes for song credit and royalties. Ozzy blames his manager wife for the whole to-do, but it's still a nasty and needless act. If interested, there's a lot more to this story, and I would point you to bobdaisley.com for the details. Thankfully, the 30th anniversary edition of Diary was released on vinyl in 2011 and with the original recordings. The edition was also released that year in a limited run picture disc. And of course, there's the 24-album vinyl box set of Ozzy's discography, due out on the 29th of November, 2019. And yes, the Diary of a Madman album in the collection is the original recording here as well. But $500? I don't know, will I buy it? Maybe. The video you just watched was a compilation of clips from the Vinyl Reacquisition Project, a program available on the Accusation Network YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, watch the full episodes of the show. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching.